It's August 19th, the 53rd anniversary of Strelka's ride into space on the Spudnik 2 and the 44th birthday of former Friends star Matthew Perry. Somebody should really ask him what it's like to be stuck in second gear. I mean, it hasn't been his day, his week, his month, or heck, even his year. Oh well, at least we have another action-packed episode of Gaming Cross History EX to get to. But we don't have much time, so let's just dive right in. The big anniversary this week would be the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which is celebrating the Big 22. This was Nintendo's first foray into the 16-bit market and came out 2 years after the Sega Genesis. The Super NES launched with Super Mario World as a pack-in, retailing for $199, or around $340 in today's money. Beyond Super Mario World, the Super NES launched with Pilot Wings, a tech demo masquerading as a full-fledged game. Critics were wowed by the system's Mode 7 scaling and rotation, but even at the time they noted that the actual game was paper thin. Speaking of showpiece games, the Super NES launch also brought us F-Zero. After years of games like Rad Racer and Pole Position, the smoothness of the scaling and overall control made this a landmark racing game. It also holds up. While all of the F-Zero sequels emphasize speed, this first game is still my favorite, if only because it's the one I actually felt in control of. On the third-party side, the Super NES saw the launch of Final Fight, one of Capcom's most beloved arcade games. Unfortunately, Capcom neutered the console port in some significant ways. It was missing stages, only offered 2 of the arcade's 3 main characters, eliminated some of the enemies, and removed the 2-player support. These days, there's really no reason to play the Super NES version of Final Fight. And that's not all. SimCity was also a big hit when it hit store shelves 22 years ago this week. Nintendo Power gave it a score higher than even Super Mario World. Speaking of games celebrating birthdays this week, The Legend of Zelda will see its 26th anniversary on August 22nd. With more than a dozen main series sequels and just as many spin-offs, remakes, and ports, this remains one of Nintendo's go-to franchises. My favorite? A Link to the Past, but we'll talk about that in November. In far less exciting news, the abysmal NES port of Narc is celebrating its 23rd birthday this week. This is the game that purports to be down on crime, yet you spend the entire time blowing drug users into tiny little pieces with rocket launchers. If the game was any more hypocritical, they would have to call it Ted Nugent. This week also marked the 22nd anniversary of Ninja Gaiden 3, The Ancient Ship of Doom. While not the best Ninja Gaiden game on the NES, this is nowhere near as bad as Tecmo's recent Ninja Gaiden 3, Razor's Edge. And while we're on the subject, if you haven't watched my Ninja Gaiden the mini-series trailer, please click on the video and do so now. While not a video game, it's still worth noting that Nintendo announced what would become the Nintendo 64 exactly 20 years ago this week. On August 23rd, Nintendo and Silicon Graphics announced that they were working together to create Project Reality, what would later become the Ultra 64, and then, at the very last second, become the Nintendo 64. The system was released 3 years later. While we're off the subject of game birthdays, this week also sees the founding of Valve. The Washington-based publisher officially went into business on August 24th, 1996. These days, they're best known for Steam and not publishing Half-Life 3. And one last gaming birthday, GoldenEye 007 came out exactly 16 years ago this week. It did marginal business and hasn't been heard from since. Oh, who am I kidding? GoldenEye was a huge hit for Nintendo and helped shape first-person shooters on home consoles, at least until Halo came out. Over on the magazine side, we have the August 1998 issue of Next Generation asking 4 very important questions. PlayStation, how long does it have? Dreamcast, can it be stopped? Nintendo 64, can it survive? And Project X, is it for real? The answers in order. Another 8 years? Yes, maybe, and In the August 1992 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, the editors give Axley the Game of the Month over Out of This World, On the Ball, and Tasmania. And that brings us to the end of our second episode of Gaming Cross History EX. I'm still tweaking the format a bit, so definitely let me know what you'd like to see going forward. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, share it with all your friends, and turn it into a homebrew text-based role-playing game along the lines of Zork. I'll be back next Monday, but hey, don't forget to tune in to defunctgames.com on Wednesday for an exciting season finale of Lifetime Movie Network. You won't want to miss it. See you next week.